There may be almost nothing quite as satisfying as cutting your own lumber. I'm trying to work on the quarter knees. The book calls them rabbited blocks in step number 151. And the idea is that the shear clamp comes back past the frames here at the shear line, and then you put up an oak block back in here that's rabbited to accept the shear clamp. And I've got a bunch of pieces of wood cut out here for the shear clamp, but boy, they sure got a lot of knots in them. I'm just not very comfortable with these, and I may go after a little white oak tree on the property. On the other side over there, I have started to try to measure where the shear clamp should go, and that's just a piece of cedar strip, 16-foot cedar strip that I had laying around. I don't think the bend's going to be that bad, but it's pretty severe up there at the bow. So anyway, tonight I'm trying to figure out how to get these blocks together to mount back here on the transom and the aft quarter. So I took the chainsaw out and cut off a hunk of this white oak log that, well, you can see another piece of it sitting down there on the floor. This is from the tree that I cut down when I very first started this project, and some of it's still just been sitting up at the top of the yard, and it's been out in the weather and everything, and man, white oak's something. It hasn't hardly rotted at all. So anyway, so I was able to mill out these two pieces, and I figure they need to be about 3 inches deep and at least 2 1/8, 2 1/16 wide. And what we'll do is then we'll cut the rabbet out of one side for the shear clamp to lay in. There's going to be some crazy angles on this because you've got the angle of the transom that goes down. You've got a slight curve in the planking here as it comes down, and that's gonna take some figuring. But anyway, this was actually one place where the book, Maynard Bray's book, kind of showed you what you were doing, but so often there isn't much discussion about any of this, so that's why we're doing the video. Okay, more as we get these blocks fashioned. This quarter knee is tricky because you got double angles. You got the angle of the transom coming down, which is about 45 degrees, and then you've got the angle that's shown with the little angle gauge here between the planking and the face of the transom. And so this was really tricky. And what's tricky about it is you can see it when the board's up there, but then when you take it to go to the saw, I don't think spatially well enough to be able to keep it in my head and just go cut the piece of wood. So tonight I was at least smart enough to, rather than wreck the oak with making a bad cut, I started out with a piece of 2x4 and used this to determine my angles. And you can see where I've got various little marks on here. So I knew that I had to worry about this angle going this way, and so I locked in my gauge, my angle gauge, and then I brought it over to the saw and on the table so I can adjust the angle here. So basically I just took it, put it right up there against the saw, and adjusted the angle until I got to where I wanted to be. Now in this case, we were about 18, 19 degrees. And as I was playing with the pine 2x4, this here, I kept bringing it over here to the saw and running it through here. And so I had these lines on here, but it's kind of tricky because when you're at an angle like that with the blade, first of all, it's kind of dangerous and scary. But then after that, you get your line here and your blade doesn't end up coming up to it, so you can't see what you're doing. And I'm freehanding it because I'm at about a 45-degree angle. There's no way to run it against a fence. Now, there might be a way to run it against a fence for somebody who's smarter than me that does a lot of woodworking. And I'm sure I'll figure that out about the time I don't need to know how to do it anymore. But anyway, what I did is I drew my lines on the block where I wanted them, and then just tried to stay in line with the line here on the yellow on the edge of the saw, and just kept feeding it through there. And I cut this 2x4 probably 7 or 8 times before I finally got it to fit. But then once I knew that I could get it to fit, and it fit good, then I just drew my angle off of the edge of the 2x4 straight onto the oak. And so you can see, even on there, that I drew my line on there, and I have that line on the inside there about 3/4 of an inch back from the edge that I was trying to cut, because that was the line that I lined up with the safety guard on the table saw. Now I still have to cut the rabbet to accept the shear clamp when it comes back, because the idea is the shear clamp's going to come right in here, even with the width of the frame. So I'm going to cut out a notch in here for it to fit in. But we got the angle on here on this oak so that it fits right in there. Just goes right in there. Now I have to go do it on the other side, and that's going to be exactly backwards from what I've just done. Okay, that is the quarter knees. I know that a little bit of this is somewhat repetitive, and that's just because the video was shot over a couple of different days. It took that long to figure out how to make these cuts. You basically got double angles that had to be cut at the same time. At a point I had started cutting one angle and then the other. You can't do it that way. Thanks for watching. Oh yeah, here's Mudhead Dog. See you next time.